Hello everyone, and welcome back to the only true crime podcast you will ever need, The Dark and Macabre, hosted by me, Matt Turner. I hope you enjoyed the first episode, and I hope that you're even more ready for this week's episode. Again, if you enjoy this content, please head over to the TikTok page and give it a follow, or the YouTube if you're watching this on TikTok. The links will both be down below. And the same as last week, comment down below your thoughts on this case and let me know of any stories or cases you would like me to know more about or do a video on, and I will go and check it out for you. With that being said, let's get into today's episode. This episode starts once again in Hyde, Manchester, but this time we're not talking about a killer couple, we're talking about a one-man show known as Dr. Harold Frederick Shipman, who killed on an estimate around 250 people starting in the year 1971. This family-friendly doctor would become one of the most Britain's famous serial killers. So who was he and what was his story? Let me tell you. Harold Frederick Shipman was born on the 14th of January 1946 and eventually became one of the most infamous serial killers out of England, with his crimes affecting many families. Shipman grew up to be an introverted adolescent in which he only had a few friends. Now, a few years later, Shipman came to care for his mother when she was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer, and this is what initially piqued Shipman's interest, as his mother was prescribed morphine to help ease the pain of her terminal illness, in which she then came to pass on the 21st of June 1963. This would eventually propel Shipman into a state of determination and made him want to attend medical school. Even though Shipman would fail into getting into medical school on the entry exams, he would secure an internship at an hospital. Eventually, Shipman would receive his medical degree in 1970 from Leeds University. Now, he first started as a practitioner in Todmorden in Lancashire, but then was kicked from that practice in 1975 for the fraudulent prescriptions he had created for the opiate known as pethidine. Years later, in 1977, Shipman would be accepted at Donnybrook Medical Centre in Hyde, where he was seen as a hard-working, trusting and family-friendly doctor, and he was successful in maintaining this image for nearly 20 years. Now, suspicion of Shipman was first raised by a local undertaker. Patients under Shipman's care were dying at an unnerving rate, with very similar ways of dying, being sat in a chair or reclined on a couch. Funnily enough, one of Shipman's medical colleagues, Dr. Susan Booth, also made the same evaluation and contacted the police, and an investigation was followed, but Shipman was unfortunately cleared. On the 24th of June 1998, Shipman would do a home visit to one of his patients, that being 81-year-old Kathleen Grundy, who was a very wealthy widow. Shortly after Shipman's visit, Grundy would be found dead by her daughter, Angela Woodruff. When she confronted Shipman, she was very reluctant to accept the excuse that Shipman gave her for the cause of death. Now, even after this, Shipman would advise Woodruff that an autopsy was not needed, and she was buried to the wishes of her daughter. Woodruff worked as a lawyer and was very surprised when she found out that her mother had another will, requesting that majority of her estate went directly to Dr. Harold Shipman. Now, this made Woodruff believe that Shipman had murdered her mother, all for the pure intention of greed, and that he had forged a will in her name. So, what did she do? She took her theory to the police, of course, and this time Shipman wouldn't be so lucky in his efforts. Now, because of this, Grundy's body was to be exhumed, and a post-mortem revealed that she had actually died from a morphine overdose within 3 hours of her death, perfectly within the time that Shipman visited her. Because of this, Shipman's home was raided, and in his home was found medical records, a collection of jewellery, which is possibly his trophies, as we know that killers like to keep a sentiment, and an old typewriter which was used to forge wills. Now, police immediately looked into the deaths that were on Shipman's time and found that Shipman had told the families that the patients' bodies was to be cremated, which was obviously to cover his tracks from any post-mortems. Now, in the deaths where there was no cremation, after exhumations, police were able to charge Shipman with 15 separate individual counts of murder on the 7th of September 1998. It was found that his MO was overdosing his patients with morphine, mainly being people with an elderly age and had quite a bit of wealth to their name. Even though there was no witnesses to any of these murders, the jury was still convinced, and he was charged with all 15 counts of murder and 1 count of forgery on the 31st of January 2000, and he was sent to serve 15 life sentences at Durham Prison. Now, Shipman went from a small, smart, young boy to losing his mother, to becoming a qualified doctor, and to then, and now known as one of the most infamous serial killers in British history. Harold Shipman was found on the January 13th, 2004 in his prison cell where he had committed suicide by hanging. In 2005, an official government inquiry was ordered to work out and determine just how many patients lost their lives by the hands of Dr. Harold Frederick Shipman. And that report turned out to be an estimate of 250 patients. Thank you everybody for tuning in to this week's episode of The Dark and Macabre. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this episode and any opinions on the case. If there are any cases you would like me to look into and do a video about, again, let me know in the comments down below and we will get into it. Stay safe. Until next time, this has been The Dark and Macabre.